Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, on the net since 2000 and still going strong. If you feel like you're not getting the real news, if you feel like you're not connected spiritually, you have found your home. Maria covers a wide range of topics as only a snarky New Yorker can. Straight up, no chaser. No censorship, no corporate sponsors, thus true freedom of speech. Your subscription gives you unlimited access as a member of the smartest audience on earth. Relax and enjoy the education. Now here's Maria.
Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to The Bigger Picture with myself and Michael Reccia. We're going to talk about his latest book, not the new one. That one's coming out this month. Many Voices, One Mission, Group Soul Wisdom. And believe me, if there ever was a time on the planet Earth that we need a group soul wisdom, now is the time. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Maria. Great to be back with you.
It's good to have you back. I can't believe 2 months has already slipped on by.
Time is racing onwards.
So I'll wish you a happy new year, a happy belated new year.
And the same to you. Thank you.
Let's hope this year we can turn things around, because the more I look at this planet, the more I realize we're running out of time.
Yes, indeed.
But on the exciting part of life, when's your new book going to be ready?
Well, hopefully the 22nd of February in the UK. We will simultaneously send off the proofs, the PDFs and proofs to the printers in the US, and should have a date from them next week sometime.
Great.
But I have got the back cover copy to tempt people with, if at some stage you would like to hear that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so here's the back cover copy. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening odyssey through magical metaphysical realities. The spaces between are filled with wonder, spectacle, and the unexpected. So says Joseph, the ancient discarnate spirit communicator, as in this, the 8th book of his internationally acclaimed series, he draws back the heavy curtain of reality to reveal aspects of the world and of our physical and spiritual lives that have remained unnoticed, unseen, and unappreciated for countless eons. Within these pages, you will meet the many wondrous expressions of spiritual life, both positive and negative, that cohabit and interact with us on Earth. Hugely influential beings that at worst have been dismissed entirely and at best confined to the realms of folklore and myth as a result of our current fascination with all things material and the glamour of our express-trained society. You will also come face to face with and discover the nature of some of the deepest facets of yourself, allowing you to gain greater control over your life and to express and project the noblest aspects of you into the world for your personal benefit, the benefit of all humanity, and the good of the planet itself. Prepare yourself for an enlightening, enthralling, and sometimes shocking journey through the parallel realms that exist around and within you at this very moment, waiting to once again be recognized and understood. By the last page, you'll be in no doubt that the spaces between, on Earth, in the heavens, and deep within yourself, are in fact anything but.
Wow, that sounds great. That sounds great. I can't wait.
There's a little sense of what's coming up.
Well, I have to tell you, it's interesting that you mentioned parallel realms. For whatever reason, this entire past week, every single night, I am in a parallel realm.
Really?
And I know that they are as real as, this illusion. And it's just separate, different lifetimes. In each one that I totally know are real while I'm there. And I even had one of my 5 sisters in 2 of those existences, but not all of them. And I woke up this morning and I was like, what's going on? I mean, that was the first thing I said to myself is, what's going on? Yeah.
So you find yourself living those lives?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And I don't know, I don't know if it's whatever's going on astrologically or, if I'm just tripping out there. But, I mean, they're very interesting lifetimes, similar to life here on Earth, but without a lot of the, how could I say it, bullshit.
It sounds idyllic.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, I'm busier when I'm sleeping than when I'm awake.
We very often are, of course.
But it's fascinating because usually, when you dream, or at least for myself, when I dream, a lot of the people in my dream I don't really know. They're not people that I do know them, but I don't know them from this planet. And yet this whole past week, there are people there dipping in and out that I do know from this planet.
That's fascinating.
I know. I'll have to spend some time thinking about what's going on. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Am I getting ready to leave? Or am I just becoming a total split personality? But, the work is similar, though. The work is the same. It's not like I do much different in these other lifetimes. I'm always teaching. I'm always traveling around teaching. And the only difference is I think I have a lot more respect on the other worlds than I do here.
Sounds good. Sounds a better world.
Right. Anything's got to be better than this. Michael, before we get into what I wanted to discuss with you from Many Voices, I did get a question for you from a new reader of yours and one of my subscribers, and I'm going to try to explain it in the best way I can. Listen, people, when you send me questions, try to really get them into one sentence so I could figure it out. He said he hasn't read all your books yet. He does have them, so he was apologizing if he's asking something, but he's going back to a show we did in October on intelligence. And spiritual intelligence. And what he's thinking and asking is, when you think about astrophysics, quantum mechanics, or Stephen Hawking's, when you're off planet, is there still a place for astrophysicists to study the universe? And does everybody in the spirit realm have the same identical IQ?
Well, we all have the same core IQ, but if you consider intelligence really is the ability on this level to react to our environment and to react effectively and successfully to our environment. So the more effectively and successfully we can react to our environment, the more intelligence we appear to have. But it's only a means of interacting with this world. We have to consider what happens when we interact with other worlds. And that depends on our spiritual, not intelligence, but memory. It depends on the degree to which we remember that we are spiritual beings and have access to our path of evolution that involves many lives, that involves many incarnations. Mm-hmm. So it is dependent as to how we react with the spirit realms on how we remember our place within those spirit realms. It's a different kind of intelligence. We're still reacting with the environment around us, but we're also reacting with the environment within us.
Right.
And the more that we remember that we are creative beings, that we are angelic beings, and that we are part of the divine, the better equipped we are to interact with the various spheres that we come across. Now, other physical planes, I have no idea. Our science here is limited. Our science, again, presupposes that everything in the physical universe, it works in the same way that it does around us on Earth, and that's not necessarily so. Mm-hmm. We've only just reached out to our own moon. So we can suppose that things operate in the same way on other physical planes, but that doesn't mean that they do. We've got a very blinkered, very restricted view of how the universe works, materially and particularly spiritually. So we can't actually say that everything works as we think it's going to work here. Right. And astrophysics might have no meaning on another plane of existence, on another planet that has been created by the angelic host. We are blinkered, we are confined, and until we break through those shackles, which is what we're attempting to do by bringing light into the world, we don't have a holistic view. We have a very small view through a keyhole, or through a slit in reality, as it were. So we've got to wait and we've got to work, and then we will view intelligence in a different way.
Okay.
Do you think that answers the gentleman's question?
Yes, I do. I think it answers it perfectly, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So, just because mathematics and this and that, exist here and make some sense here, doesn't mean it does anywhere else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've got a very small viewpoint. We haven't been off planet, really. We've only been to our own moon.
Right.
And in meditating, in connecting with the divine within, in connecting to our higher selves, we get a different perspective of here, right now. And the more that you meditate and connect to that spiritual self and to your spiritual faculties, facilities, the more that this world seems like an illusion, and you begin to question the confines of science. You begin to question many of our head-mind presuppositions as to how the world works, because you get not intelligence, but knowledge from within. Intelligence allows you to interact with this world. Knowledge from within allows you to see this world as it really is and act from that viewpoint instead.
Right. And if you can see the world as it really is from, that viewpoint, you don't overreact to it. And I think that's the hardest part for most people, is understanding that as real as this feels, it's not.
No. I mean, we know from our science that we've just talked about as being a small viewpoint, that most of matter is not actually there. You have atoms, you have divisions of atoms spinning around at such speed that they give the illusion of reality. Mm-hmm. But were you to vibrate at a different rate, which is what you do when you leave the physical body behind, you could pass right through your walls, right through your buildings, anything, because you're at a different frequency. So much of what we see is not really there. It is only loosely bound together by our acceptance of how it should be. Mm. It is the communities, the communal acceptance of how the world should be that dictates how it is, because we are creative beings and we create our own worlds. So we wake up every morning, and because things have been in a certain way for our lives up to that point, we accept automatically that they are going to be that way for today and tomorrow and the day after. But what we don't realize is that we are creating today and tomorrow and the day after in the mold of yesterday, mm-hmm. because that's what we accept to be true. Right. If we en masse accepted that something else was true, for example, we're talking about the world being not a nice place to be in at the moment, if we accepted that it was a better place, if we visualized it as being a better place, if we visualized light being in the world, if we visualized that spiritual intelligence beginning to dawn within souls around the world, then we would change the world. And that's what we're working to do. We're working to say, this is not what we want. Let's rub that out and let's create what we do want and what we want from our hearts. And that world is not pie in the sky. It's not Shangri-La. It is something that we have to work at, but we can create.
Well, many years ago, I mean, you and I are similar in age. I remember, in the 60s, the 1960s, one of the big conversations we would all have was how exciting it would be that we would all still be alive when the millennial changed in 2000. And we used to imagine, a perfect world, flying cars, how advanced we would be, no more war, this and that. But I guess maybe there wasn't enough of us imagining that.
No, our understanding perhaps the mechanics of it. It was a world that we saw and thought was good, but we were coming, for the most part, from our heads, from the computer in our heads. The key to this is to come from our hearts, where there is this well of light, where we connect with the infinite, where we connect with the divine, and to bring that light out. If we understood the mechanics better, then we could better and more easily change the world. The mechanics involve projecting from within, projecting from our core, projecting from our true spiritual intelligence. It's great that the gentleman asked this question, because we seem to have a theme here. Because our true spiritual intelligence doesn't lie in our heads. That's where we make the mistakes. Right. We've given power over to our physical minds. The power that we have comes from our spiritual hearts. As we've often said on this program, Maria, we have two minds. We have a mind in the head, which allows us to interact with this world and seeks always to survive and put us in a position of survival and safety. Mm-hmm. And we have a mind in our hearts, a spiritual mind. and that mind connects us to everything else, and that mind is connected to harmony and light, and that mind knows what to do in every discordant situation to bring out the harmony in that situation. So if we had transferred enough of us in the 60s from our head mind thinking to heart mind thinking, we would have begun to change the world. But we can still do it. It's something that can be done at any moment. If enough of us get together, if enough of us realize the mechanics, and if enough of us are prepared to put the hard work in that it takes to change things.
Right, right. Well, I've said for a long time, and mostly because I teach the medicine wheel and, our interconnectedness with everything on earth, every living thing, that the earth is talking and nobody's listening. Okay. The Mother Earth is talking, nobody's listening. And as I was reviewing, I don't remember which chapter in Many Voices, it might have something to do with earth changes. One of it was about, the earth is talking, does the earth talk? And it was the part where you say that everything talks, and that reminded me, when I used to study with Sun Bear, and people would say, do the animals talk? And he would say, yes, they just don't speak our language. You need to learn their language.
Yes, indeed.
So
yes,
when
indeed.
you look, go ahead. I'm sorry.
After you, Maria.
When you look at what's happening on the earth, between, and I call them earth changes. I don't call it climate change. Because these are the earth changes that have been predicted for thousands of years, which I feel is a normal pattern for the planet. But when you look at the earth changes and how they're intensifying, I believe the earth is really talking to us now.
Yes. The quote that you're talking about is from the Aboriginal gentleman in Many Voices, where he says, the earth talks to you, everything talks to you, the trees, the streams, the animals, but you have forgotten how to listen. And we have forgotten how to listen. And most importantly, we've forgotten that the planet is completely and utterly linked to us. That we can't just use it as some kind of warehouse where we can store up our materiality and not respect it. The earth is alive. It is a spiritual being. We have helped to create it. We are linked to it. And if we pour into it our negative thoughts, our violent thoughts, our acts of violence, then it irritates the earth. It digs deep into the earth. It disrupts the flow of harmonic energies from the earth that flow around the globe. And the earth reacts not in anger, not to teach us a lesson, but because it has to re-establish the flow if it can. And it tries to re-establish the flow, and we have our tidal waves, we have our hurricanes, we have all the natural disasters that seem to be occurring. And we again don't realize that if we sent out harmony and love to the earth, if we respected the earth, above all, if we respected the earth, then these things would calm down. We're an infestation in a way at the moment. We are this infestation across the earth that just digs and tunnels and chops and hurts and breaks up the natural structure of the earth.
Right.
And the earth is trying to re-establish its pattern of energy, and in doing so creates, not wanting to harm us, never wants to harm us, creates these natural disasters to try and re-establish what it was before we so aggressively harmed it and continue to harm it.
Right. Well, I forget which Native American had said that every time man drills into the earth, she releases another disease to protect herself.
Yes.
And when you look at, I always say it, Michael, if it's going to be man against nature, man's going to lose.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you see, this week, what's going on in Australia. They had their second 100-year flood in 21 years, and one of their dams overflowed. And, people were hanging on to trees. Snakes were coming out from all over the place. But when you look at how man thinks that they know better than the earth, I always know it's going to be doomed to fail, whether it's cloning, whether it's designer babies, whether it's, polluting our skies with chemtrails or geoengineering. I already know the end result is that, if you want to go up against nature, you're going to lose.
Well, we had, funnily enough, on a very, very small scale, a flood in the centre of the village where we live over the last couple of days. And a water pipe burst, and the power of the water lifted up the road surface, lifted up the tarmac, as we call it here. And that is just a small burst. And I was looking at this big rift in the road thinking, this is incredible, and this is just a small example of the power of one element. And as you quite rightly say, we think we're in charge, but we're not. We're not. We are in charge in that we influence the Earth's surface. We influence what happens. But we're not doing that consciously. We're doing that through our acts. We're doing that through the way that we are. The planet's not supposed to be ravaged by all these natural disasters. The planet is supposed to be, and was created to be, by us millennia ago, a harmonic sphere. We pour disharmony into it all the time. We are muddying the waters.
Literally.
We are polluting the skies, as you say. We are polluting every aspect of nature. And we never stop to consider that this planet graciously allows us to go through the experience that it has to offer us, and takes care of us and provides our physical bodies. We never consider that, which is absolutely shocking.
Right.
It commands due respect. It requires due respect. We need to respect each other. We need to respect the earth. We need to love the earth. And we need to stop considering every material object that we create as being something that we want today but have to change tomorrow. We are digging into a finite supply. And there will come a time when we have unbalanced the planet to such an extent that we cannot live on it any longer. And we have to face up to that reality. And we're not doing.
Right. Well, with all the different beings that you contact and work with for this particular book,
Yes.
I have my own ideas on the questions I'm asking you. But are human beings in the process of dying out?
It's a pattern, and it goes back to, we've mentioned it many times in many shows, it goes back to us getting the way of creation wrong at a certain point in our evolution as spiritual beings, or the fall, as Joseph describes it. And we've locked ourselves into a pattern. And we have destroyed ourselves as civilization at least twice before, according to Joseph. And he says it's possibly more than that, but he's only allowed to see back to a certain point in time as we would measure it. And there have been two civilizations before us that have wiped themselves out. And then the earth lies dormant for thousands, perhaps millions of years, until such time as we can come back to try and get it right again. And you'll think, well, why don't we go on into the spiritual realms? Because a lot of us choose not to. And at the point where civilization ends, there is nowhere for us to go except into a kind of stasis, into a kind of sleep, until the earth can support us once again in whatever form, and then we come back and we have to work out, we have to rectify what we got wrong. And until we do that, we will keep repeating the pattern, keep going round and round and round and injuring the planet. The planet won't be able to sustain us. Off we go, we come back again, and the same thing happens. There has to be a point at which we say, enough, we know better than this.
Right.
Enough, we can change things. Enough, we're not coming back, for example. We are moving on into the spiritual realms and then on into infinity and back into our angelic heritage. We have to see, that there's a lot of spiritual literature about, and it's fine to read spiritual literature, and as Joseph says, accept or reject what he's saying. But we can't just read and say, that was nice, and go on to the next book. We have to do something. We've got to put the work in. And it's down to each of us. And we are way beyond the wake-up call.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost to the point of the going-to-sleep call. Mm-hmm. So we need to do something. And we can do things in little ways. We can do things in the way that we approach people. We can approach people in a kind way, even if they don't approach us in a kind way. Not suggesting that we are harmed in any way, but that we approach people with a kindness and a light that is something that they haven't seen before. That we approach negative situations and challenges in our lives with a light that we haven't used before, and watch them melt away and gain this track record of light being the answer, of harmony and kindness and love being the answer. We're back to the 60s, where there was a sort of peace movement, and there was a hippie movement,
right,
and there was a love movement, the summer of love. But love is the key, but love has to be applied. Mm-hmm. We can't suggest anything else, because it is the only way. Love is the expression of what we are as part of the divine, and we're not expressing what we should be expressing as individual spirits and as a global community. We have to express that love, or inevitably, not perhaps, but inevitably, we won't be here that much longer.
Right. Well, I try to tell people that every kind of relationship, whether it's just with the person online in front of you in a supermarket, or your love relationship or friend relationship, all these things take work and effort. But I find that, and maybe it's the technology today, people are not willing to make that little bit of an effort. Everybody seems intent on their little gadget. It's almost like a way of avoiding any human interaction.
Yes, and those gadgets are drawing us into the field of human consciousness to a deeper extent. The field of human consciousness, as we mentioned in other shows, is at present set to negative. It's like a collective child that needs. What does it need? It needs more of the same energy, and it takes that energy from our personal and collective energies. And we found with our technology recently a new way to be bamboozled by the field, a new way to be drawn in. We've had snows here. We've had quite severe snows over the last couple of weeks. And I've seen people wandering up through the streets and into the road, glued to their phones, not aware of anything or anybody. And you see them on trains, you see them on buses, and they don't talk to each other anymore. They are glued to this little screen that is speeding up, speeding up the images that they see every second, every minute, and slowing down their attention span. They can't study anything for longer than a few seconds. And it's infiltrating us. It sounds like a conspiracy. I don't mean it to. But we have to beware of our own technology. We were talking about loved ones and our reaction to loved ones, and that work needs to be put in. And yes, it does. But some of my greatest joys, I don't know about you as you grow older, Maria, but some of my greatest joy is in the people that I love. And that extends to friends as well.
Right.
And friends come to visit, and I think, how wonderful. And thank you for the contribution you've made to my life. I feel more harmonious and fulfilled by having you in my life. And we have to turn to each other, because ultimately the technology is an illusion. We are not. We are spirits. We are part of the same thing. And we have to love each other and get back to that. And away from this isolation, this dangerous isolation that's threatening to swamp us all.
Oh, I totally agree, and yet they call it social media. So you have to think in terms of George Orwell and doublespeak, because I see more hatred and anger and division as a result of social media than anything else. There was an article last week that actually said that a lot of people, when they leave social media, find their lives are happier. Yes.
And you've only to look at any review on the internet or any comment about anything. It can be quite a balanced review, and you'll find the hatred under that review. Everything has to be polarized into I like this or I dislike this. It's never I'm going to leave that alone because it's not for me, so I'll let other people enjoy it or not.
Right.
You have to like it, you have to dislike it. And there are such personal and terrible and profane attacks on people on the internet, and you have to wonder why people are so angry. And I think the answer to that is they're so angry because there is a missing element in their lives. And that missing element is the divine within.
Right.
We've pushed out the divine within. We prefer the car. We prefer the next mobile phone. We prefer the holiday, whatever it is. But those things will never, ever bring us lasting happiness. They might for a day as a distraction, but they can't bring us the happiness that we find through connecting to the God within, because the God within is what we really are. And all the companionship that we need, all the support that we need, all the inspiration that we need lies within us.
Right.
But instead of that, we're looking outside ourselves at the big screen, at the small screen, at the technology that we have, not realizing that we're dumbing ourselves down and putting ourselves further and further away from what we really are.
Right. Well, I always carry my own tunes with me when I go to the gym so I can listen to music from happier times, the music I relate to. And yesterday I was listening to, I don't know if you're familiar with the song. If not, everybody should really take a good listen, but really listen. Have a headset on so you can hear the words. The Ballad of John and Yoko. And,
yes, indeed. Yeah.
There's one point in the song where he says, Yoko tells him, the only thing you take with you when you leave is your soul. Think.
Yes.
And before headsets, I will tell you, I never heard the word think in that song. So headsets did open up a new world in my hearing ability. But it really is the truth, and it's so fitting to what we're just saying. I remember, I don't know what your mom was like, but, my Sicilian mother, she used to like to collect things. If you bought her a little piece of, crystal or jewelry or whatever, she would never use it. She would always save it. It went right in the china closet. And I could never really understand that. And I used to tell my mother, I said, Ma, but what are you waiting for to use those things? If you're going to save them, I used to tell her, your coffin's going to be pretty crowded. So people have to realize, you really literally can't take anything with you when you leave. You take your soul, which hopefully has advanced during its time of being here.
Yes, you take the experience of having been here, the consequences and the uplifting aspects of having been here, and the way that you've reacted on each day of your life with those around you and with yourself. Those are the true jewels that you take back to your spiritual life. As you say, you can't take anything with you. I often think that there must be many spirits who depart this world but refuse to depart this world, and that they're still hanging around, as it were, and they will desperately be trying to get hold of all the objects that they have in the house, and their hands will be going straight through them. It must be extremely frustrating for them. Any object that we have, it is the way that we experience it, not the object itself, that is important. Mm-hmm. How has that object impacted on our experience of life? Not something to hoard, but something as an aid to our evolution. And if it's not an aid to our evolution, we should let it go.
Absolutely.
I look at because I love to read like you, Maria, so I've lots and lots of books. But I'm currently thinking of, I've got to thin some of these out.
Right.
Because if I go first, then Jane has got to deal with all these books. And she won't know where to send them or who would like to read them. So it's best that they're passed on. I pass on books to friends, which is difficult because I absolutely adore books.
Right.
But if a book is read and it's sitting on a shelf, it's not accomplishing anything for anybody. Someone else can get pleasure out of that. It's time to move these things on. My spiritual teacher, Joan, towards the end of her life, said, I don't want you to buy me anything. Don't buy me anything for Christmas. Don't buy me anything for my birthday. I need to thin down the things I've got, not add to them.
Absolutely. And the older I get, the more I want to get rid of stuff too.
Yes.
So you start a little lending library. Right, start a little lending library. But I will tell you, some of my books really mean a lot to me.
Yes, indeed.
Especially those from people that I love that wrote books to me, and I have their inscription in it. And some books I do have to keep just to have, for reference. Even though everybody thinks the internet is all that, well, one day the internet might not be available, and it's, I still like a book in my hand.
Yes.
But I think it is, when you get to a certain age, it's not only time to start giving away, but time to start giving back.
Absolutely.
And that's, the purpose of life, is to teach the next generation. Michael, we need to take a short break. When we get back, I've got an interesting question for you, Michael. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Meria. I don't often get to talk directly to the listeners here on the Gary Null Network, but I felt like doing that today. I know a lot of you really enjoy my show, but you might not know that I do 4 shows a week over at my website, Meria.net. So if you're loving the show you get to hear on Sunday, come on over to my site and subscribe, because I've got hundreds of hours of great shows on pretty much every topic in the universe. And that again is Meria.net, Meria.net. And now we can get back to this excellent show. Thanks.
Spiritual professor is a name some of Maria's students and clients refer to her as. After a consultation or class with Meria, some have gone as far as calling her the Force or the Oracle. Meria is simply a woman, a mother and grandmother who was born with a keen natural intuition. She's got a lot of life experience and she's a constant student herself. This is what qualifies her to help those who are on their journey and need some direction. Some students visit her in person, others on the phone or on Skype. Meria will work with you on your own timeline, guiding you down your best possible path. You can learn to balance the mind, body, and spirit in what seems to be a world gone mad. As David Icke says about Meria, Maria's the real deal, extremely intuitive but with her feet firmly on the ground. Out there, but down here, no bullshit. Whatever you need in this part of your journey is what Meria will help you with. She'll give you the tools you need to make the rest of your life the best of your life. See private consultations with Meria on the site at meria.net and pick the one that resonates with you. You are not alone. The professor is in at meria.net. Now back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to The Bigger Picture. And listen, you're all welcome to send questions. They don't have to be based on Michael's books. Of course, anything you really want to know, you can always do that before our next show, which will be 2 months from now. But Michael, before the break, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people talk about them, but I don't know what people really believe about them. When you hear the people saying that they believe in miracles, what's your definition, or Joseph's definition of miracles?
Well, my definition would be that a miracle is the normal course of events. A miracle is a result of putting the correct energy base or power base into a challenge. For example, an illness that has been given up on by the medical profession, and receiving the normal course of events as spiritual laws work themselves out. We see. I think it's a measure of how steeped we are in the negativity of the world that we see something that should be the normal course of things as a miracle. Miracles, in inverted commas, happen to the extent that we invest power into the situation and expect a positive result, expect a harmonious result. In other words, if someone is dreadfully ill and it is not their time to go, and there is the ability for them to come back from that illness, a miracle is putting enough energy, light around that person, and visualizing that person as being whole again to enable them to reestablish the harmony, the health that they have that is their right as a spiritual being. So that's how I would define a miracle, and I'm sure Joseph's answer would be exactly the same. They are not. We look at miracles as something extraordinary. In fact, and I'm not putting them down, they are something that should be ordinary, that should be commonplace. They are to do with us being able to draw at God energy and transmit God energy to repair ourselves, to repair situations in the world, and to repair anything from a bad emotional situation to a terrible illness. But we don't believe in them. So we think that they are extraordinary,
Right.
but they're not. They are glimpses into how we truly operate as spiritual beings.
Well, that it reminds me, when people used to ask Sun Bear, they thought what he did was supernatural because his specialty was bringing rain. So they would call him to different parts of the world that were in drought, and he would create rain because he knew how to talk to the devas in the air and the sylphs and whatnot, and to bring rain. But his definition was it was never considered supernatural, that it used to be extremely natural for humans to interact with the Devic kingdom, with the elements.
Yes.
But, somewhere along the line, I guess, maybe science, we can go back to that original question, maybe science said, yeah, that's hogwash, and you need to do it this way.
Yes, yes. And that's interesting that you're talking about devas, because devas are covered in depth as one of the forces around us in the spaces between. which you didn't know, Maria, so we haven't set this up, folks.
No, gee, I must be psychic.
Yes, there must be something in this psychic business.
Well,
yes, but
your earlier books do talk about the animals being, a strong part of the Devic kingdom.
yes, indeed, yes.
And then you look at the
that
way
is
we,
explained,
you look at the way we treat animals, which is horrific. And
Yes.
again, because humans feel a disconnect between them and nature and them and animals, they just think they can do whatever they want. But they don't realize they hurt themselves every day by mistreating animals.
Absolutely, and they don't. It's always a them and us situation.
Right.
We don't recognise or acknowledge our oneness with everything. There's only one. There's only us. There's only everything. And we are part of the animals that we treat so badly. We're part of the insects that we treat badly. We're part of the trees, the foliage that we treat badly. They are part of us. Divinity doesn't see any difference between us and other expressions of spiritual life. And everything is an expression of spiritual life. So when we attack an animal, we are attacking ourselves. When we're cruel to an animal, we're being cruel to ourselves. And, how dare we cause such suffering to sentient beings? How dare we dispatch them to the spirit worlds, and they know they're going.
Right.
If you've ever followed a truck that has sheep in it that is going to a slaughterhouse, those animals know. And they are in terror, they are in pain, they are dispatched in numerous cruel and long-lasting ways, and it shouldn't be happening. Who do we think we are? Who do we think we are that we can commit such cruel acts to sentient beings? And I suppose that the question that has to be asked is, if the shoe was on the other foot, how would we like it?
Right.
How would we like to be herded into trucks and taken knowing that we were going to be killed,
Wow.
and then slaughtered?
Right. Well, I think a good review of that should be everybody re-watching the old movies Planet of the Apes. Everybody was very upset when the apes put humans in cages and tested on them and abused them. I often think about, what if it was like Gulliver's Travels and some big giant just came around eating human beings? Well, what would we think?
Yes.
But, here we are as a race, so many people want to meet aliens, alien life forms. And I often tell my friends when they want to talk about it, I said, look at some of the animals on this planet. They're as alien to us as we can be, but nobody's studying them.
And there is that spiritual intelligence within animals. There is that connection to the divine. It's far more easy for animals to communicate one to another than it is for us. And they communicate their true feelings, their true perspective. There's no subterfuge with animals. If they love someone completely. If they care for their young, they care for their young completely. And they are connected to the divine, and they are part of the Deva. They are part of these wonderful spirits that graciously have provided the backdrop to our lives, have provided the stage set, the film sets that we react against, seemingly outside of ourselves, but in reality within ourselves. And we disrespect not only the planet, we disrespect the animal kingdom, we disrespect the devas. We've forgotten, as you said, how to communicate with animals, how to communicate with other spiritual life forms. And really, we've got to pull ourselves back from the brink. But we can only pull ourselves back from the brink through work. And it's no use us saying, oh, I can't be bothered to meditate this morning. I can't be bothered to send the light out tonight. I can't be bothered to think of where the light should go before I go to sleep. I can't be bothered to say to divinity within, if you want me to help today, then bring the people to me that need help and bring me to them so that I can help in any way I'm required to. We have to do something. It's a very, very urgent and vital time in our existence here as a civilization. We have got to do something. We can't just say, oh, those are pretty spiritual words or pretty spiritual pictures. Something has to be done. And for each of us, that is drawing on the light within, visualizing the world we want, visualizing the peace we want, and sending it out so that we create a cocoon of light that allows other souls of their own free will to examine what they are doing, how they approach each other in the world, and to ponder whether there is not a different way to do things.
Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, it's an old adage. Everybody still uses it. They credit Gandhi with it, but change begins with me. It's one person at a time. And I've noticed that my whole life. When I was younger, I had the ego, maybe the egotistical ignorance to think that I could save the planet. Of course, as I matured and understood the way life really works, I said, wow, how egotistical. The planet doesn't need me to save her. And just decided, well, I'm going to try to teach one person, at a time what I know. And whether that was the medicine wheel, Reiki, or even, 20 years of doing radio, trying to educate people, I realized that it still changes those lives. It was similar to when I first got my a hybrid car, back in the day, I think it was 2005. And I remember pulling up to the post office in it. And in those days, they were very rare to see on the road. And this stranger just came up to me and he just looked at me and in the nastiest tone, he says, what do you think you're doing? Making a difference? All I did was park my car, Michael. So I looked at him and I said, I'm making a difference to me.
Yes, quite right. Yeah.
And this is the way people need to realize, at the end of the day, did you make a difference? Did you make a difference to yourself?
Yes. We've been given this wonderful, wonderful gift. I mean, we're given gifts at Christmas, we're given gifts on birthdays, and all those things either end up on a shelf or they wear out, and then we need some more gifts as we see it. But we've been given a wonderful, precious, precious gift, and that gift is personal responsibility. That gift is free will. We can do whatever we want, and we are responsible for our own lives. But you see, a lot of us don't like that. It's far easier to say, tell me what to do, doctor. Tell me what to do, solicitor. Tell me what to do, government. Tell me what to do, army, navy. Yeah, tell me what to do. Tell me how to think. It's easier if I give it to you. It might be easier, but you are not sorting your life out. You are not dipping into that precious gift and evolving as the spirit person that you really are. Terribly important that we grasp personal responsibility not as something to be pushed to one side and be feared, but as something to dive into head first, to enjoy. I am responsible for me. I am here in these circumstances, in this situation, because I have placed myself here. And if I'm not happy with having placed myself here, I can work myself into some other situation by the way that I visualize the world and by drawing on the light and the intuition within. It is my responsibility. If I'm ill, it's no one else's fault. If I'm unhappy, it's no one else's fault. If life doesn't go as I think it should, it's no one else's fault. It is down to me. And I am a creative being, I am an angelic being, and I can change things. And that's a wonderful, wonderful power.
Absolutely. You know, when I was reviewing a part of the book where you were talking about that we live in a land of dreams, and how easy it would be, and I really like to gift this to my audience who gets trapped in other people's drama, or, you know, afraid when they see what's going on in the world, or however they internalize, where you say, I think it was on page 246, because I made a note of it because I really like it, Michael. This is not part of my reality. So when somebody comes and wants to dump their stuff on you, or it's an ugly situation that really you have no business in, all you need to do is say, this is not part of my reality. You don't have to accept it. And it amazes me how many of my friends, how many of my clients accept other people's burdens. And I tell them, that's not yours to carry. Why are you carrying that? So maybe everybody can remember that one little sentence for the next time somebody or something wants to dump on you, and just say to yourself, this is not part of my reality, and stick to that.
Yes, and also not to reply in kind, not to think, well, it's a terrible situation, I'm angry about it, or I resent you doing that, because if you send out those negative emotions, you link to the very thing that you're trying to get rid of.
All right.
So you have to say, that's nothing to do with me, fine, you get on with your life in that way, I have my own reality, and those vibrations are not allowed in. So we have to be spiritually neutral in those situations as well, and be careful not to make a link up with the negative energy that's trying to surround us, trying to influence us.
Right. Another reason that I suggest most people leave all of that outside when they enter their home, to just make your home your own private little safe space or sanctuary.
Yes.
You know, in whatever way you do that. You know, people always say to me, you know, your house always feels so good. Well, that's because I'm very careful about who and what I let into my space, because this is my sanity. This is my little hideaway. This is my little Superman's cave, away from the craziness.
That's the way I look at it here. And funnily enough, because we've now finished the 8th book, we've been taking a look at a very tired kitchen and bathroom here. And this may not sound relevant to what we're talking about, but it is. And in order to sort out this very tired and very ancient bathroom and kitchen, the walls have had to be stripped back to the plaster, and in some case to the bricks and to the stone. And it's fascinating to feel the vibrations change as the kitchen that was not mine and the bathroom that was not mine are taken out.
Right.
And they are uncovering layers of wallpaper from the 70s, from the 60s, I think even some Victorian wallpaper. And you can feel the vibrations within those wallpapers that were not uncovered until a few days ago. So, yes, it's very important. My point is, it's very important that we put the right vibrations into our houses, because they are absorbed by our houses as being part of us. Absolutely. And those vibrations don't necessarily leave if they're negative until we do something about them. So we should always bless our houses, we should always put light into our houses, and we should thank our houses for being the fortress and the sanctuary that you've just talked about, Maria. I am so grateful that I have this space that will allow me to step back from the world and be me. And yes, I can deal with the interactions of the world once I step out of the front door, but whilst I'm in here, I am me. Thank you, divinity.
Right, right.
Thank you, house.
Well, you know, I remember, you know, when back in the day when we used to live in, you know, Brooklyn, when they would start stripping the walls in an apartment or whatever, and you would see all this old yellowed fashioned wallpaper and stuff that, you know, you didn't put up. But it was almost like taking a trip through history as you kept peeling one layer after the other, you know, to make it your own. And, you know, even when people want to buy a new place, I always tell them, you know, you have to do a ceremony when you move in to make that house your own. You know, I mean, I talk to my house all the time. So I might be one of those weirdos that just talks to my house all the time. When I come out of my bedroom in the morning, I say good morning to my house. When I go to bed
perfectly normal.
right, when I go to bed at night, I say good night to it. See you in the morning. Keep me safe. Protect me through the night. I love keeping it neat and tidy. I like buying it a little something new every now and then. I love watching my trees grow. And when I do watch them grow, and some of them grow naturally from wherever a pine cone fell, there's a tree growing. And I think about the people that'll live here after me and the pleasure they'll get out of these trees when they're full grown. I don't know if other people do that or not, but if you love your house or you love your car, they love you back in kind.
Absolutely, and anything that we have, be it a book or a television set or a cooker, love them, thank them for what they're doing for you, because it's a privilege that they do these things for you, and they will run much more smoothly and have a far longer life if you put love into them and acknowledge them as extensions of yourself, because that's what they are. We choose the wallpaper, we choose the tiles, we choose the cooker, we choose the look of the rooms. They are extensions, projections of what we perceive ourselves to be at this point in time. So we have to love those projections and extend that protective aura around and through our house.
Absolutely. When I bought my first house when I was in my 20s, Michael, and my father was a house painter at the time. And when he saw that first house, he tried everything he could to talk me out of buying it. He was like, that room is going to take 100 pounds of spackle. It's crap. It's this, it's that. But when I look at a place for myself, I don't see it as it is. I see it the way it will be. Yes. It's almost like it gives me a vision of what I can transform it into. And even
vision.
Yeah, and even though with all his bitching and complaining, once I finally fixed that tiny little shack of a house, he was proud to bring his friends over to see my house.
Yeah, because that vision is real. The moment that you look at that vision with your inner vision, you are creating it. It exists. It exists. It's simply a matter of pulling those vibrations towards you, and then they manifest to the degree that you believe in them. So that's a very important thing with people's houses as well, and with every aspect of their lives, to see what they want.
Right.
Of course, without harming anyone, and hopefully from a spiritual attitude that wants the best for everyone else too, and for the planet. But the moment that you see something, you begin to create it. The molecules of that situation start to gather together, and you start to solidify them. But people will say, well, I visualized something and it hasn't happened. But how much did you believe in it?
Right, and how much effort did you put towards making it happen?
Yes. How many times did you say, oh, that can't be? Because when you say it can't be, you begin to deconstruct it.
Exactly.
So the two are in flux, creation and destruction, until you decide, believe in what you want. Believe in what you want, let it go. See it every so often, and it's there. You have it. It's yours. It's as simple as that, and as difficult as that. Because we have society telling us that it can't operate in that way. We have our peers telling us it can't operate in that way. And we seem to have a track record that says it doesn't operate in that way. Only because we're used to creating totally in a negative way.
Right.
We've got to turn things around and start to create positively.
Absolutely.
And believe in our creations.
For sure. Well, Michael, I want to thank you for yet another interesting hour that sped by at the speed of light.
Thank you, Maria. A great pleasure.
Always, and I'm looking forward to your next book. Yay. But we'll talk.
We'll be with you in a few weeks. We'll
Great.
be with you in less than a month, Maria.
Okay, well then I'll have it before our next show.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
All right, well you take good care, Michael. We'll talk soon.
And yourself.
Bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye. Michael Reccia, check his work out at josephspeaks.com. If you don't have the Joseph books, you're missing out. And I hope you enjoyed today's show and it gave you a little different perspective. Makes it a little easier to live in this reality, which isn't real at all, but man, it feels that way. So thanks again for supporting the show, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening and supporting The Maria Show. Tell others what you learned today. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's shared. Encourage others to subscribe today. www.meria.net. Often imitated, never duplicated. A world of information all in one place. www.meria.net. Always ahead of the curve. Always on your side. Get active or get radioactive. Subscribe today.